What makes someone a great facilitator? Is it the PowerPoint, the resources, the qualifications? Or is it the ability to read a room, manage difficult personalities, create engagement, and turn learning into real transformation? Today, I'm joined by Marc Miles, an author, facilitator, and trainer with more than 14 years experience across vet, L&D, and corporate training space. Marc has worked across multiple RTOs, trained trainers and facilitators, and developed a real passion for helping people become more confident and engaging presenters. In this conversation, we unpack what great facilitation actually looks like, from moving beyond death by PowerPoint to handling tech glitches, difficult learners, AI, and creating those moments where people genuinely discover something for themselves. If you're a trainer, facilitator, or learning professional, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Marc, you've been a facilitator for over 14 years now. Yeah. What drew you into the facilitation world?
Great question. Great place to start. I'll give you the nutshell version of the story. But I lived in Japan for about 8 years, taught English, and eventually came back to Australia. My heart has always been in the place of teaching. I love helping people, love helping them learn stuff. I get a thrill out of that, and I'm sure you do as well. After working in Japan and really starting my passion for teaching, I actually heard an ad on the radio, and this will sort of be my segue into how did I get into vet. But I heard an ad on the radio for the Diploma of Leadership and Management. Well, that sounds interesting. So I actually called up the organization and I said, I'm interested in becoming a trainer. I heard your ad, and the owner of the RTO, he's still around today and he still operates his RTO. He actually called me in and he said, come in, let's have a chat. Let's have a coffee and let's see where you're at, and maybe in the future you could be a trainer. I had no real idea what he was talking about, but anyway, went in, I had coffee with him. He was a really nice guy. I still know him to this day. But I sort of planted a seed. Probably about 2 months later, he called me up and said, like, bit of an emergency, I need a trainer. Would you be available, for a couple of nights a week to teach the Diploma of Leadership Management? I'm like, yeah, okay, say yes and work out how later. It's kind of the trainer model. But during that time, I thought, I'd also like to get into the whole corporate training side of things. But one of my colleagues at the time said, but do you have your TAA? I said, what's that? Never heard of this TAA thing. But, I looked into it and I went along to a particular organization, won't say what, and I did my TAA, and it was a 6-month-long course, 2 nights a week, and I got that magical piece of paper. And I had some interesting experiences at that organization, and I kind of came away feeling a little bit deflated. And I thought, I'm a bit of an experienced teacher here, and I went to this organization looking to become a trainer, but I didn't really feel like I learned much about training. And I'm like, there's something wrong here with this qualification, this TAA thing. And lo and behold, as I was doing my moonlighting, teaching the Diploma of Leadership Management, I actually lost my sales job. And on the just a couple of days beforehand, I actually saw an ad on Seek for being a TAE trainer, and for a particular RTO that still exists to this day. One of the big players, so to speak, and applied. Got the job, but I had no idea what I was actually applying for. And they asked me a bunch of questions about teaching and training, and I was able to answer those questions. And then I got the job. And then I was inducted, and that was the first time I started to learn about this TAE thing. And I flew down to Melbourne with my boss as part of my onboarding, my induction. And hopefully he doesn't watch this, but anyway, the first time I ever delivered the TAE, I had really no idea what I was doing. But the story is that the idea was I was going to watch him deliver the first workshop, then I was going to go away and deliver it, as you do. But he got through day 1 watching him deliver it, and we got to day 2, and then he actually had a medical and emergency back on the Gold Coast. We were down in Melbourne at the time, and he said to me, Marc, would you be willing to take the rest of the course? And I'm like, yeah, okay. I have no idea what I'm doing here, but okay, we'll see what happens. So I said yes and worked out how later. But I said yes, and he flew back to the Gold Coast, and basically I got through the course, and at the end of the week, everyone said, that was amazing. That was the best course I've ever done. And all I did was basically just field their questions, go through the assessments, and teach them some fundamentals around training and presenting and facilitation. And they absolutely loved it. And I guess that's where I really found my, I guess, obsession, my passion, because I could really see people transforming as they were going through the TAE, discovering what it was like to actually
Mhm.
own a room, be a great public speaker, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And that's where I just got my, I guess, my passion for it. So that's my long story, and I've worked at probably about 6 RTOs now teaching the TAE. I've worked in L&D as well for childcare. Been a training manager for a paramedic college. So I've kind of been around the trucks of the vet sector, but for me, my greatest joy is always teaching people with the public speaking stuff and helping them get over their fears and give them structures to be able to show up powerfully and get the message across, whether it's in vet or other capacities as well. So
Mm.
that is my long answer to your short question.
So, what is facilitation, Mark, in your opinion?
Um, it's an interesting question because I was at a conference probably about 3 years ago, and I was up on stage, and we had about 100 people in the room, and I delivered what I believed was training. And then afterwards, I got off stage, and someone said, "Oh, mate, you're a great facilitator." And I'm like, "No, not really. I want to be a great trainer." They're like, "Nah, you're a great facilitator." I'm like, okay. So I started to think about, the whole facilitation trainer concept. I think for me, fundamentally, a facilitator is the one, and you probably agree with this, that brings out the knowledge in the room, shapes the knowledge, and leads people to help them have their own self discoveries and aha moments. And I think that the better you can get in stepping into the roles of instructor, facilitator, coach, and mentor, and do it in the right times and the right ways, then you have the optimal influence on your audience. But I would say facilitator is the one that draws out the knowledge, helps the group shape it together, and then leads them to their self discoveries and their personal aha moments. Because as we know, it's the audience don't believe a word that we say, but they do believe what they personally discover themselves.
Is that the hardest part of facilitation?
I would say that the hardest part is, well, it's not even, I wouldn't say it's hard, but I would say the variable that comes into it is that every learner, when they enter a training room, has a different level of what I would call readiness to learn, and I
Mm.
guess openness to learn. And I think at the end of the day, getting people to the same place where they're all at the same level of readiness to learn and engaging all those different people when they're coming in with levels of confidence, levels of motivation. That's where the dynamic comes into play. Um, I wouldn't say anything's really hard about facilitation because I'm going to say something a little bit controversial in a moment, but facilitation and training becomes a little bit predictable. And people are like, how could you say that? Well, I've done it for 14 years now. I've kind of put in the 10,000 hours. So I know, but like based on people's personalities, based on what I say it, how I set things up, I can predict what's going to happen every single time. So yeah, I shouldn't say it, but humans are predictable. But, they just are.
For me, usually is when I see the faces that they are disengaged.
Mm,
They're looking on the phone, they're looking outside the window, they're having a conversation with somebody next to them. That kind of signals that whatever I'm doing clearly is
mm,
not working.
mm.
What do you do in those situations? How do you recover from that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess for me, it comes back to uh, the setup, the expectations. I guess I'm always asking myself, mm, fundamentally, how can I help people learn and how can I help them learn even faster? And this was driven out of the fact that I got frustrated very early on when I was training because I just got frustrated that, you teach a bit, then the following week people would come back and you ask them, what do you remember from last time? And they look at you blankly. And I'm like, that's weird. I put my heart and soul into the last session. You don't remember anything. What have I done? What have I done wrong? Or, where did I miss the mark? And I just got really curious about that. So I guess for me, I'm a little bit blessed in the sense that I get bored so easily. I get really bored really quickly. So the thing is, I guess I've trained myself to be super time aware. And I guess with how I deliver, I'm looking to change up the training modality pretty much every 5 to 8 minutes. Now, for me, that would simply be me talking for 5 minutes, then doing something else for 5 minutes, something else for 5 minutes, something else. And the regular change is happening so often, it's impossible for them to be doing anything other than what we're doing in the moment. So I just find that through that dynamic delivery, people will generally stay engaged. And if they're checking out, it's normally because something is really, really important is going on for them. And my motto in my delivery is I will never do the next activity the way I did the last one.
Mm.
What I mean by that is the next activity, we're going to change up the people you work with, or we're going to do a different size group, or we're going to watch a thing, or we're going to do a talk about a thing, or we're going to go from doing this modality to that, to that, to that. And people are generally on the edge of their seat wondering, oh, where's this going? I don't know. It's kind of like a roller coaster. And the other thing is, I'm very consciously aware of the precipice point. And one of my mentors, who's still around to this day in the vet sector, he taught me something around group activities and timing. And he basically said that when you're stopping an activity, generally you want to stop it just before the peak of interaction. And what I discovered is that if you can stop it just before everybody gets too excited, like you stop it, people are getting excited, then you stop it, then you don't find that people go down the roller coaster and crash and start checking out. And again, coming back to my comment about predictability, what I started to do was actually time it. How long does it take for a group to do a task? And actually write that down. And at what point do people hit the social chit chat? And at what point are people optimizing their activities? At the number of people in a particular group, what does that look like? All right. And for that activity, do we do it in pairs or threes or fours? And I just got very scientific about it. And I just started to notice these things and started to notice, okay, personality types. What are the best personality types we're putting together at certain times? And it just became a bit of a scientific experiment for me. So yeah, maybe that hopefully answers the question a little bit, but I know it's a little bit technical.
These are some of the reflections that I've seen myself as a facilitator. This is about to go horribly wrong. I have about 30 seconds to turn this around. Or the group is highly energized, and like you mentioned, you need to manage the highs and lows because you have at least 7.5, 8 hours of training facilitation that you're going to go through, particularly when you're doing a workshop. Face-to-face and virtual is a completely different strategies, which we're going to talk about them. But for you, face-to-face or virtual, what's your preference?
Face-to-face. It's a tricky one because it's kind of like apples and oranges. Both taste good, but they've got a different flavor to them. And I guess what I've been able to do is take the best of face-to-face and take it to virtual. I I can make virtual work, and I'm sure you can very well. But at the end of the day, we are still trying to plug the gaps. And there's a lot of things I can still do in virtual. And my workshop facilitation mastery advanced course that I run is run virtually, right? But the thing is with face to face, as you would know, you can see the aha moments. You can listen to everything that's going on in the room. You can tailor your feedback a little bit more strategically. You can notice something that was said and you can then draw upon it, facilitate deeper on it. But with, virtual, as we do, we use breakout rooms all the time, but it doesn't necessarily mean I can be in every breakout room and hear what's going on. So I don't really have as much of like sensory acuity or situational awareness as much. Definitely I do a lot, but it's never going to be to the degree of face to face. And face to face, you can really get to know people at a deeper level. You can know what's going on for them a little bit quicker. You can read the room a little bit easier, and you can definitely change the energy in the room a lot easier. Having said that, face to face, you got to get there, you got to set up, and all that stuff that comes with face to face. Virtual, you just show up, click the button, and you're good to go, so to speak. But I don't know. In terms of enriching my soul, I would say face to face is the place for me. That's what I enjoy the most. And but yeah, I feel comfortable in both modalities. And how about yourself, Ian? Do you have a preference, or
I
I mean,
love the way you
it's a
said
hard
it.
question because you probably feel comfortable in both, right?
Absolutely. Look, I love the way you put it. It's apple and oranges. I love both, but
Mm,
I prefer apples. Right?
mm,
Doesn't mean that I cannot have both fruits. It is a preference,
mm,
and then you can see where the market is going. A lot of
yeah.
convenience happens in the virtual, and then you can go after hours, after 5 o'clock, six
Mm,
o'clock, when people are more free to do stuff and upskill. During the
mm,
day, they have responsibilities. They have to go to work, look after children. So there's not enough time. So that is the convenient part. With a lot of people, will take that on, saying that, well, because it's convenient, the learning will happen. However, the commitment, and what I'm seeing from my side, the commitment, if somebody comes in and does the virtual, doesn't mean that it's easy. It means that you have to work double hard, not only as
mm,
a facilitator, but as a student as well, as a learner. So yeah, apples, oranges, I just prefer apple. But
yeah.
in saying that, two different modalities,
Mm,
two different
mm,
set of tools. Maybe the same
yeah.
set of tools that some will work in face to face, some of them will work on the virtual space. I've listened to the podcast that you did with Phil Bevan,
Hmm.
and I noticed that when Phil asked you, and this is the death by PowerPoint, by the way, when Phil asked you PowerPoint, and then you said PowerPoint
Mm,
and then you added on more and more to that. When we're talking about the tools, are they the same tools as the facilitators, as the trainers they're using all the time, which is a PowerPoint? Then you have your session plan embedded in your PowerPoint and you follow through the steps? Or you become more creative and then you build in or you bring in other tools? And what is your favorite tool?
the it's a really tricky topic. And let me explain why. The thing is, like you and I believe to a degree, teach the TA. And if I reflect back on my years when I was first starting out as a trainer or a teacher, I think when I was not as developed as a presenter, I I leaned on the PowerPoint because I believed that if I could show the right slides, that's cool. That's me presenting ready to, that's rock and roll and we're having a great time. I'm showing my slides. That's me presenting. The challenge is that the PowerPoint slides is kind of the fastest way to disengage an audience, but it's kind of the crutch that you lean on when you're first starting out. And the thing is, until you or someone makes a decision, I'm going to step away from the PowerPoint, nothing really changes. And at the end of the day, people have got a decision to make. They can continue along the road of death by PowerPoint, and they can be married to their PowerPoint. The other challenge with PowerPoint is that often RTOs will use PowerPoint as a bit of a compliance measure as well. And they will say, well, we covered performance criteria 3.3 on slide number 56. So, we've ticked that box on the compliance side. So there's that flows into it as well. And the PowerPoint is often, corporate training will go, oh, we've got this concept. We want this concept taught a particular way. So here's our 5 slides on that concept. The challenge is that when you're developing confidence, as you were saying there and you were alluding to, the thing is, great presenters and facilitators like you, we go, I've got a message I want to get across. What's the right method and tool to get that message across? So you've got PowerPoint and you've got a whiteboard and you've got a flip chart and you've got videos and you've got a handout and you've got games and you've got all these different other tools that you can use. So for me, if I'm ever going into a learning environment, ultimately the one question I've got is, do you have a flip chart or am I bringing my own? Because for me, a flip chart is the fastest and easiest way to engage an audience. And I believe a great facilitator should be able to take any piece of content, chunk it down appropriately, and be able to teach it in an engaging and dynamic way, and be able to use a flip chart or a whiteboard and be able to really draw the information out of the learners and use that flip chart as a space to get creative so that it's not speaking at the learners, but speaking with the learners. And I have the ask, then tell approach. Ask, then tell, not tell, ask. And I find that PowerPoint, although it's great to build your confidence in the beginning, it becomes a crutch, and a very dangerous crutch, because you end up thinking that PowerPoint's the only tool that you can ever use.
Yeah, you said flip chart, and that is what I do. I brought it in from the face to face to the virtual, and I love my markers.
Oh yeah, they're great, right? Awesome.
I find it that is something that you build anticipation towards. You're saying something, you're writing something, and then you're conveying a message, and people will take time to understand what is happening. With PowerPoint, I find that it's just been splashed, even though you use animations and beautiful graphics and all that type of stuff. It doesn't have that human anticipation that the facilitator is writing something. I should probably do the same. I should probably take a note of that. And I love sometimes when I'm writing stuff on the whiteboard and the flip chart, they pull up their phones and taking photos of it.
Exactly.
And that can commemorate that, or just remember it for the next time and then using it. Now, I've been following on LinkedIn, and some of the series that you have been putting up, especially the trainer tips, for everyone who is listening, follow Marc. He posts every day trainer tips. If you are new in your career, if you're just starting, if you are in the workplace, or if you work for an RTO, if you're a corporate L&D, whatever your role is, there is a tip for you every day that Marc will post, and we'll talk about it and break it down. One of them, I am reading it right now, and was one, the training tips 2026, and this is for the today, Marc. How to handle tech glitches like a master facilitator. Now, tech glitches happen face-to-face, virtual, it doesn't matter. How do we deal with them?
So I think what I've come to discover is that they can sort of make or break a presentation. And it's how you respond to it that is what leaves a lasting impression. And as I mentioned in my blog post, I think it was last week that I was watching a video on YouTube. It was someone I follow. He was over in America doing quite a profound speech, but it was like 10 minutes in, he tried to play a video didn't work, and he had a bit of a panic moment on stage. And I'm like, I love this guy so much, but there was just like a minuscule moment he lost my trust. Oh, I feel sorry for him, but I'm like, dude, you didn't check your equipment. Dude, you didn't test it enough, right? So I guess glitches, they happen to all of us. They really do. And sometimes they're out of our control. Um, for me, I operate in a co-working space. My internet is pretty good, but some days Telstra or NBN just does its thing, right? So it'll just cut out, and then I'll need to quickly hotspot from my phone, and different strategies that we have. So I guess in my blog post, I simply said number one, the first thing is you want to test all of your equipment. Just test it, test it, test it. Never assume it's going to work. I was at a presentation I did 2 weeks ago. I was at a conference. They didn't test the mics. When I went to use the mic, it didn't work. So I'm like, screw it, it's not working. I just went with my voice. But that's cool. You got to test your equipment, right? Next thing is basically I love to pre-frame the audience. And I love to actually say in an online capacity or online workshop, I'll say, look, folks, as we all know, technology can be like the weather. Sometimes it goes our way, sometimes it doesn't. If my internet drops out, just take a deep breath. It'll be okay. I'll be logging on back as soon as I can. Then the next one is pause. Just take a deep breath. If something goes wrong, just take a deep breath. Don't panic. Just the way that you respond is going to dictate how your audience feel. Just like when you're training a dog and you're walking a dog in the park, if you freak out, then they freak out more, right? So your audience is always looking to you to indicate how they should respond. So just take a deep breath and just deal with it however you need to. And last of all, one of my favorite things to do is actually be a human, be real, and say to the audience, look, thank you so much for your patience just now. I really, really appreciate it. And folks, let's jump into the next thing. So that kind of closes it off in people's minds. They go, yeah, cool, that's taken care of, and you can move on. If you don't thank them, it can kind of leave an open loop in their mind going, oh, that wasn't really nice. But I've just found with the pre-frame and the appreciation, then your audience are quite forgiving with things. But yeah, those are just some thoughts around glitches.
I've got a story on that. It's not a
Yeah,
story.
cool.
I was thinking, how do I manage if something like this happens? And then, as you do, you go to YouTube, you watch some of the stuff. And there was
Yeah.
this presenter, very highly engaging people. It's about 2,000 people. They were listening. She was perfect. And all of a sudden, as she was talking and walking on the stage, she fell over.
Mm,
And you can hear the gasps in the auditorium.
mm,
And you hear a voice from, and she says, and now I'm taking questions from the floor.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that just made everybody, it would kind of make a joke. Everything was happy, everything was okay. She got up and says things like this happened. She shook it off, but I'm taking questions from the floor. That was the sentence that she used to put everybody at ease.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I guess in NLP terms, we kind of call that utilization. We'd use what had happened to our advantage. And, there's simple things like if I've been holding a marker and I've dropped it and I've been mid-sentence, I've said something like, "Yep, that's a sign that we really need to let that go," or I've like said, we've had an unexpected interruption. Oh, I'm so glad we had that interruption because the next thing we're going to go into is something that we want to just pause and ponder before we go. Like you can utilize anything that happens to you, but the thing is, what you don't want to do is ignore the elephant in the room because it gets bigger. But if you can use anything that happens to your advantage, absolutely go for it. And I think there was a time when I was on a flip chart and I miscalculated. I wrote, I was doing item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I got down to 13, but I forgot number 12. Now, I shouldn't say this, but it was absolutely a mistake, right? And someone put up their hand and said, you made a mistake, you missed out number 12. And they said, well, actually not, because number 12, it's total, I was making it up, right? But I said, number 12 is actually about the importance of getting other people to proofread our work. and it was just me totally thinking on the spot. It was hilarious at the time. Well, internally it was for me, but it would just be recovering from it and me actually using it to my advantage. And they thought it was on purpose. It wasn't, but I just made it look like it was. So, yeah, that's another example how you can do it. But yeah, there you go. I shouldn't have revealed that, but there you go.
So you have the glitches and you prepare
Yeah.
for it. But how about the difficult personalities in the room? How do you deal with them?
So, um, yeah, I put them into three categories. I've got DNA. So I've got dominator, non-participant, and then I've got A for activist. So similar to your but so I just call them DNA. I guess for me, one thing I look to strategically do is this will I don't know if I can swear or not, but shut the shit down early. And what I mean by that is I like to create a dynamic in the room where the DNAs are all taken care of, but it's done in a very strategic way. So it's going to be very early on, we're going to be doing activities and I'm going to be throwing a lot of praise and a lot of validation out there very early on. And then when we go into another activity, it's going to be a lot of praise. But then what I start to do is I actually get learners to drop in the chat or even face to face, who did you watch and what's one thing that they did really well? So who'd you watch and what's one thing they did really well? And in their groups, who did you watch? What's one thing they did really well? Oh, I watched Bill, and one thing he did really was his the way that he explained blah blah. All right, fantastic. And then you go to the next person. Who'd you watch and what's one thing they did really well? And what that does is it sets up a tone of them realizing that only positivity will be accepted in my learning environment. And then from there, we also springboard into, okay, from that activity, what did you do really well? What did you discover? What did you realize in your own performance? And then what I'm going to do is if I've got a difficult person, what I want to do is float them around the room as much as I can so that their negative energy is eventually dissipated or nudged into line, so to speak, right? Now, if I've got someone that's constantly putting up their hand, I will say, yep. Let's just pick the name of Bill. Bill, that's a great point. Really appreciate that. And yeah, definitely a great point. And let's now head back in. I'm not going to disagree with Bill. I'm just going to validate his point and just go, yep, that's great. And now let's go back. And if it gets very, very tricky, I may have to say, Bill, that's a great point. We don't actually have time to really expand on that right now. My overarching aim is that you've got as little homework as possible tonight. Would it be okay if we jumped in and just moved to the next point so that you've got less homework tonight? Would that be okay, Bill? Right? So I'm going to think about what's important to Bill, and I'm just going to really reflect back to Bill whatever he wants, but I'm going to do it in a very covert way. So I find that if you apply the acknowledge other learners what they're doing well thing, and self-acknowledgement, and create that atmosphere of we're here to support each other, and we just don't entertain negativity. Then that kind of filters through the rest of the session. Absolutely, I bring it up in my ground rules as well and say we're going to be creating a world-class learning environment, and what that looks like is blah, blah, and blah, blah. Another one is, one of my ground rules is ask questions with the mentality of curiosity, not challenge. Another one I'll say is ask questions, but if it's a question of individual scenario or situation, come and see me at lunchtime or the breaks. And generally, if I set the tone of massive positivity, then eventually everybody, hate to say it, falls into line or eventually gets the idea that I'm here to support people and we're doing things that is going to be with everyone's benefit, long-term benefit in mind. So that was a very long-winded answer, and sorry about that.
I feel you, Mark, because I do the same thing.
Mm.
You have those difficult characters, you have different dynamic, and it's not bad or good, or it just is. Every group is different.
Mm,
Every group that you get into, you will have different personalities that learn differently, that have different language literacy and numeracy requirements, and they want different support. At the end of the day, what I've seen is that the learners want to be heard. They
mm,
want to be acknowledged in the classroom, in the cohort, for what they are and what they can offer.
yeah,
And my role as a facilitator is to guide them through and support them through. But at the same time, keep the balance, keep the
yeah.
dynamic, and move towards a goal.
Yeah, in my book, which people have maybe heard about, there is a chapter there about dealing with difficult learners, and I say difficult in the sense of um, they are. Let's just say creating chaos, or they're creating roadblocks or speed bumps to you getting towards your outcome. And in the book, I sort of go through a little bit of a story about I did have a particular person. I was with a particular client up in northern Queensland side of things, and it was to the degree that this person, within the first 5 minutes, threw up his hand and said, "I disagree with what you just said." I'm like, okay, we worked through that one. And then 10 minutes later, he put his hand up again and said, "I disagree." And every single thing I said, he seemed to want to mismatch or disagree with. And it was a little bit challenging. And in my book, I sort of describe how I handled it. But it was challenging because even at break time, he came up and he wanted to say, I think you should self reflect on how you did the last part because I don't think you did it very well. And I'm like, okay, thank you for that. Now, this gentleman was an older gentleman, and he was there in the room in the course, not out of choice. He was a hostage, as we often say. Um, and it was a little bit of a challenging one to deal with because I had the best intentions. I wanted to support everyone there, and everybody else was loving it, really enjoying the course, and they were going, "Oh, this is awesome." But this one person decided to create some speed bumps, and it was challenging. It really was. And if people want to find out how I dealt with it, read the book. But it was a great learning experience. And yeah, as you say, there's so many different personalities that we engage with. And we need to be able to, make the person really feel heard because, as we know, unless someone feels heard, they're not going to feel willing to change or take on any new information. And receptivity is the first challenge that we all face as trainers and facilitators.
I love the way that you put it in, and you put in all your experience in 2 books. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, too.
The first one has been out for quite a while, and the second one is there. It is. We'll put a link down below in the YouTube so we can click. I think it's on Amazon, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, as a facilitator, you get the group, you go through the whole preparation, you go through the facilitation, you get engagement, and you get the connection with your learners. It's unavoidable. You'll get a connection at a personal level, and the training finishes. The facilitation finishes. The 2 days are up. And that is this disrupt. It's kind of severance of that connection. Then you don't get to see them anymore. You don't have that day to day that you had the interaction with them. They move on with their lives, and part of you feels the bittersweet. You spend time with them, you get to know them, you hope that you help them, you gave them the tool, but that's it. You just hope that they got the tools and now they're going to put it into action. And sometimes you get some of the learners sending you an email and saying to you, Mark, that was amazing. I've used it and now I've changed my life. Has that happened to you, Mark?
Pretty much happens every week, if not every 2 weeks. with the email side of things. Um, I think not to get too academic, but I really do believe in Tuckman's, 5 stages of team development. And I think the one that you're kind of alluding to there, the mourning side, we don't really talk about enough. And, I recently spent 3 entire weeks with a corporate client, teaching the TAE program. And I really did get to know these individuals quite deeply. And it was a beautiful, beautiful journey. Every single one of them was a little bit different. But at the end, I did kind of feel sad to say goodbye. And, we had the handshakes, we had the tea and the coffee. And, it was generally a sense of, wow, I'm never going to see these people again. They're really nice people. And I would love to keep in touch, but there's no need to, other than on LinkedIn. But it was definitely a moment of really feeling that sense of mourning and a sense of disconnection, because as a facilitator, you are drawn so close to them. And then there's that severing, as you say. Um, and yeah, I do get the emails, and people will come onto my advanced course, and then a couple of days later, they send me an email saying, "Wow, that thing that you taught me, that was amazing, and I used it last night, and this is the results I got." I'm like, "Awesome, really, really happy for you." I guess I kind of it's an odd analogy, and it's probably not the best analogy, but I kind of see it like a conveyor belt. Our learners come along, we interact with them, we give them some skills, some knowledge, and we transform their lives. And then they just move on to their next learning experience. And if we can, excuse me, if we can, really maximize those moments where we have that interaction, great. But yeah, my job also, very early on, I discovered that I can't over index on whether people like me or not. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to share some skills, help them experience some new abilities and what they're capable of, and show them what they're capable of, and then send them off on their merry way, so to speak. But if they like me on the process, great. But I don't want to make them liking me as a precursor to them having their transformation, if that kind of makes sense.
It's kind of the way that you get your kicks as a facilitator. Why you're doing it as a trainer? Why you're doing it? At
Yeah.
the end is to see the outcome, to see the change, the transformation, and how their life has changed later on.
Mm. Yeah.
I'll shift gears and I'll bring us back to the beginning. In
Mm.
Australia, to become a facilitator, a trainer,
Mm.
you have to go through TAE. You have to go through the course to get the certificate, the ticket, in order for you to go and train. In the beginning of the conversation, we talked about both of us, we are TAE trainers. I love TAE. I
Mm.
feel that there is a lot of good things that you can do with TAE if it's taught in the right way,
Yeah.
contextualized to where it's going to be working. Bring in the
Mm.
tools that everybody will work with, and then go in the workplace and deliver the training that needs to be.
Mm.
Do you see any gaps in the TAE that we have?
How long you got? Um,
Just a couple of minutes, because this is not the topic. This is the pathway to enter and become a
right.
facilitator.
My personal view is that there's too much. It's trying to keep too many people happy at the same time. And I personally think that there should be a Cert III, which focuses just on delivery. And then from there, once someone's got some confidence around delivery and training and teaching, then they could go into the Cert IV, which looks at the assessing side, the training design side, and the validation side of things. I think we're trying to do too much, and as a result, people are not developing the core teaching skills. When I'm just going to say something biased, the number of people and students I interact with that come to do the TA because they want to train more so, that's been my experience. People want to do the TA because they want to learn how to be a trainer. And I've unfortunately still to this day had people say, yeah, I signed up for that TAE thing because I wanted to become a trainer, but I found that it was all about compliance and paperwork.
Mm.
I didn't really enjoy the course. I'm like, that makes me sad. It really does. And I don't think that that's what it's meant to be. So yeah, does it have some gaps? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe I wouldn't say gaps. I'd say misalignments to eventual work outcomes.
What I feel is missing is what your advanced facilitation course teaches. Because a lot of people will come in and expecting, and this is what I see. They come out and go to an RTO. Where's my
Mm,
PowerPoint? Where's
mhm,
my resources? Where's my cohort? Okay, let me just keep reading this. And what
mm,
is missing is that gap, the facilitation, the advanced facilitation to prepare the room, have the
mm,
tools, read who is in the group at that time, what are the support strategies that you need to give them based on their LLN. Have we framed the course from the beginning? Because sometimes TA is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. We have to deal with the fact that people will come in, and especially here in WA, you have the funded courses. It's
mm,
funded, it's free, so the value of the TA kind of goes down because if there's no skin in the game, I'm not
mm.
valuing it as much.
Yeah.
And what is missing is the passion which you bring as a facilitator to bring them in and say, okay, facilitation is dramatization of knowledge. You need to
Mm,
dramatize the knowledge in order for you
mm.
to connect with it, embed into you, and then execute it.
Yeah.
Because AI is in play.
Yeah.
In every course where you go in now, it doesn't matter where you are, if you are in year 6 or all the way to master's degree, AI is in play. Everyone will use it, and trainers and facilitators will use it, and will use it
Mm,
in many different ways, either to shortcut,
yeah.
help them, or even straight up just sometimes it's copy and paste garbage.
Mm.
Mark, how do you deal with AI these days?
It's a really, really tricky topic. It's such a unprecedented space. But I guess for me, um, mm, I guess I try to come back to um, what does it do well? What does it not do well? But the problem is, what does it not do well yet is what we then get into as well. So I guess what I use it for is I use it for idea generating ideas. All right, I've got a topic coming up on whatever. Give me 3 icebreakers that would work quite well for that topic, right? So I'll go to ChatGPT for that. Or I will go, okay, I need a case scenario about XYZ. Create me a scenario around that. And the audience are these types of people. So I'll go there for resources and then or creating ideas. Or the other way I'll go there is if I need to and I put this on LinkedIn recently. I said ChatGPT versus TGA because I just found going, I don't know about you, Evan, but using training.gov.au is not the most pleasant experience. And sometimes you got to go to 50 different pages to find one thing. So these days, I'll go to ChatGPT and say, what is the updated qualification for XYZ? Or what are the packaging rules for XYZ? Or what are the nominal hours for this particular unit? So I do find that AI can speed up your research, can speed up finding ideas, generating ideas. Now, where does it fall down for me? I find it really falls down in assessment creation, and it's really, really bad at. I don't like its mapping ability as well. Don't like. I've just found it doesn't map things really well. So making assessments, mapping, and I think those were the main ones. But anything that kind of really needed a context, um, it just wasn't able to actually put the bits together. And sometimes I will run activities in my class and I'll say, Leg, we're now practicing making Cert 1, 2, 3, 4 diploma level questions. And, I'll teach them how to do it. I'll give them frameworks and we'll do it as a class. Guarantee every time there's a student that likes to cheat, and they'll go to ChatGPT and they'll try and get some examples and just cheat the activity. They come back and what they share, it doesn't make sense. It's weird, and it doesn't follow all the criteria that I've just shared with the students. And we look at it, we can immediately see it's AI. We can immediately see it's got problems, and it wouldn't work in the real world. So, there's so much with AI, and I think it really just comes down to what can we trust it for now, and what is it not yet able to do? And I think the problem is that as it goes through primary school, high school, universities, people are using it as a replacement for thinking. And that's what I get very concerned about, that instead of being able to critique information, people are just accepting AI slop, AI output as gospel. And it's like, hang on, you don't know if that's true or not. And if we're pushing it through the school system as their sole place, then people are not learning to think. And that's where I worry. And trust me, not one of my keynote presentations, not one of them have I used AI, whatever, to build a slide or to build my content. None of that, because at the end of the day, from stage, you want to be your authentic self. You want to be sharing your message. And I didn't use AI to write any of my books or anything like that, because I think, as I think even Phil alluded to, or other industry people are saying, there's a move back towards human authenticity is what I'm seeing. And even on LinkedIn, they've got the indicator AI slop, and I'm like, okay, that was funny. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts around AI at the moment.
It's there. It's a tool. How we use it,
Mm,
I think we need to understand ourselves before we use it
mm.
as an assistant to do the automation or whatever other stuff. But natural intelligence will always beat artificial intelligence, and that natural intelligence is the human intelligence.
Yeah, it's funny the topic comes up because last night on TV I was watching Terminator, the very first one. It was just like, it made me think about, where have we come from, where are we going, and
Uh,
what are all the robots in between?
yeah, I think my password was Skynet at certain point. The Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. I love it. So yeah, the robots are definitely going to take over.
Mark, in
Uh,
conclusion,
yeah.
what would you say to someone that wants to be a trainer slash facilitator, starting now, wanting to do a career? What would they do? What was the three things that they have to do to become a successful trainer and facilitator?
First one, buy my book. Second one, do my course. Third one, get to know me. Anyway, putting that egoic moment aside, I think find a topic you're really, really passionate about. And I say that because you're going to have your hard days. You're going to have your days where you're not motivated. So find a topic you're really passionate about and you want to go out there and you really want to help people with. All right? So find something you're passionate about. Second is find a mentor in your industry that's already doing it quite well and get very curious. What are they doing in the training room that works really, really well? And model their success and start to just walk away going, I'm gonna, what is it that made that session really, really successful, and copy them verbatim and start to get very curious about great presenters out there and make their success your own success. And if I'm honest, a lot of what I've learned has been simply by modeling other great trainers around me. And there's so many things that I do to this day that I could say, yep, that thing that I do, I got that from that person. Right? So it's about being proactive around accumulating and just modeling great success around you. Third one is self-reflection. And I would say that When I first started out, I was really hard on myself. And, you get the 19 people that love you and the one that hates you. And it's like you go away, thinking about that one person going, oh, that was terrible. That was terrible. And you forget about the 19 people that actually liked you. So self reflection, and create yourself a trainer diary. And every night after a session, write down, what am I really happy about with what I did today? And second question, if I ever did today's session again, what's one thing I would do differently? And there's no such thing as the perfect presenter, perfect trainer, perfect facilitator. They don't exist. And if you think that they do exist, well, you've kind of capped off your own learning and you've sort of blocked yourself from getting any better. So I would just say stay humble, stay curious. But number one, find something you're passionate about. Number two, model other people's success. And last of all, just regularly self-reflect with those two key questions.
Love it. Marc, thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Evan. Thanks for having me.